But for now, we want to buckle down to a discussion. Today, we have our panelists already in studio with us, and we just want to look at why ethical leadership matters. They'll be telling us more about this also, on why Africa should actually try and embrace ethical leadership, especially when we are rated as amongst some of the high-ranking countries when it comes to the corruption index. And why should we, at this particular time, really be thinking about embracing ethical leadership? I have with me here this morning Ambassador Kariuki Kigo, who is the Executive Director of Safety Surveyors. Also, we have with us Yawa Hansen, who is Executive Director, Emerging Public Leaders. And we do have with us also Dr. Tim Mwangi, who is the board chair of the Bible Society of Kenya, also a board member of Ethical Leadership Network. We have with us as well this is Professor Dominic Mwenja, who is the CEO of Mater Hospital, and also we have Akinyi here, who is actually CEO of MEFA Creations. We shall be giving you more of the details much later in the course of the program. Eagerly awaiting also for Julian Kula to join us much later in the course of the program. Good morning, gentlemen and ladies. Good morning.
Good morning.
Right, when we discuss ethical leadership, we can just go or dive straight into it. Why does ethical leadership matter? But before that, I think getting down to brass tacks will be to just maybe unpack what ethical leadership is all about. Briefly, what is ethical leadership? Let's just begin with you, Yawa.
Well, thank you. First of all, good morning.
Good morning, and welcome to Kenya.
Thank you.
And then you'll tell us briefly why you're in Kenya.
This is my third visit to Kenya.
This is your...
And it is just such an honor to be back here and to have the opportunity to learn and to understand better Kenya's journey through democracy and some of the emerging opportunities. I serve as the executive director of a public service leadership organization. And our vision really is to help strengthen leadership in the public sector. And to answer your question about why ethical leadership is important, it's simply because I think that we need to be alarmed by the fact that the story of global poverty is largely about Africa. And it's estimated that by 2030, 1 out of 3 of the world's poorest will be African. And when we do an analysis of some of the reasons why poverty is so pervasive on the continent, we cannot ignore the impact that corruption is having on economic development. My friends in the finance sector say that although Africa has about 17% of the world's population, regrettably, we have about 20% of the world's disease burden. And only 3% of available investment resources come to this continent, and partly because of issues of corruption. So it's important because when we think about a future in which we want our children and their children to thrive, we must stop the leakage that is caused by corruption. And I personally think that corruption is one of the largest or biggest social injustices of our time. And it really is the responsibility of leadership to address it. We have seen through our work in Liberia and Ghana that if we do become very deliberate about investing in a new generation of ethical and competent leadership, it does transform the economic trajectory of a nation. And I'm encouraged by my time here so far to hear some of the great ideas, the energy and the dynamism of Kenya's young people and their resolve to do something about the menace that corruption is. So ethical leadership is important because it provides opportunity for economic development, and the promise of good governance really is that those who are the poorest and most vulnerable will have the opportunity to receive the social services they need the most. And corruption disenables that to happen. And so having a new generation of ethical leaders, in my opinion, is the innovation of the moment.
Right, thank you. Maybe just to give you a brief history about Yawa, she's a visionary leader whose career intersects the value and goals of emerging public leaders. As Executive Director, she works closely with EPL's founder Betsy William and EPL's Board of Directors to strengthen emerging public leaders' organizational development and expand also the network of country-led programs. And in May 2012, at the World Economic Forum on Africa, Yawa was recognized as one of Africa's rising leaders, and in 2016 was awarded an Eisenhower Fellowship in honor of her pioneering work nurturing emerging women leaders. Yawa served for 3 years on the foundation board of the World Economic Forum's Global Shapers Community, and also is a current member of the board of directors of Asheshi University College, a leading liberal arts university in Ghana. She previously served as a leadership consultant at UN Women, helping to develop leadership curricula to enhance the capacity of women leaders in East and Southern Africa. And you tell us more also why also you're in the country much later in the course of the program. But of course, we are actually breaking down ethical leadership. From your own assessment, Professor Dominic Mwenja, what is ethical leadership and why does it really matter now? Do you think these are quite...
Yes, good morning, Dibal.
Good morning to you.
I look at leadership and everything that we do and talk about leadership as a social construct. And the reason why I look at it as a social construct is because we respond to people's behavior as a society based on how we view them. We respond to morality among individuals based on how we view them. And that is why you will find someone who has stolen a chicken goes to prison for 10 years, and somebody who has stolen billions is walking around. In that mind frame as a social construct, then we need to start looking at our national psyche as individuals. Leadership has something to do with how the national character is. If you look at this country, we have gone through 4 generations. We have the generation of the 60s and 70s who believed in hard work. That's the generation I grew up in. I knew when I work hard, I go to school, get good grades, I'll get a job, or I'll become an entrepreneur, and I worked hard. Then come the generation of the 80s and 90s. That's when the hustler mentality in this country started to creep in. That's when hard work and good governance became a by the way, you are too good to succeed, and therefore you had to hustle for you to. And that's why we looked at intellectualism as a crime. So the thinking people took a back seat. Then come the 2000s, and you started to see this country emerging again. And if you look at the young people, the amount of creativity that we have in this country today, and this generation that's going to take us to the next level, these are the kids who were born the last 20, 25 years. And they were born those last 20, 25 years. That's during Kibaki's time, when optimism came back to the country. The young people looked at what their parents and their grandparents did, and they say, you know what, we can do better. We have all these technologies that's all over the place. And if you look at the creativity we have now in this country among our people, we have not seen it in any other generation. Then come now the generation where we are now over the last 10 to 15 years. Last year, we did a national survey. And one of the things that our young people over home they were saying, it doesn't matter how much work, how you get your money, how you get your wealth. We have corrupted society in generations. And that's why for us, leader behavior is extremely important. And national leadership has something to do with the national psyche, which affects each one of our people and how they behave. Look at Rwanda in 2 generations, less than 1.5 generations. If you look at Rwandese, they are extremely optimistic. They are looking forward to doing greater things as they grow up and play a major role in the development of their country.
Yes.
So all those things have to do with the leader behavior. So how do we look at leader behavior and leadership and ethics as social constructs that shape how we behave as individuals in a society?
Thank you. Let's hear from Dr. Tim. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good to see you. Ethical leadership, why does it matter? Why is it providential for Africa to have an ethical leader or ethical leaders right now?
I think, and leadership happens to be my space, there is nothing possibly more important in this country than that whole, if you 018 on the ethics part. Because it's not like leaders don't know what to do. They do. But very often, most of us don't want to do it because maybe for some of the reasons advanced by some of my predecessors here, it doesn't seem to pay to do the right thing. In fact, we are at a point whereby that hope is almost going away. You know, the feeling that if I try to do the right thing, I'll never get ahead. I'll never succeed. In fact, even among young people, you know, you find this right all the way down to lower primary school, which I think is that should be a warning signal for a society that this is a crisis in the making. We are already possibly in it. I've had cases of when nowadays they do elections in primary, you know, class 2. You know, the young people will be bribing and so on because they've learned that that's how you get ahead in this country.
Class 2?
Class 2, primary school. So what hope is there when those people grow up and they can carry a machete or do other things and so on? So I think we have a crisis in our hands. And not just in the area of politics, economy. Think about basic things like road accidents. We lose lots of people in this country. We shouldn't be losing. Just because maybe the road was designed by somebody, they had to get a cut. And so rather than giving it the right curvature, you know, you kind of, you know, cut back a little bit so that you can save money or take away, get a kickback, and eventually lots of people dying. You know very much in this country there are various hotspots, you know, or black spots for that matter, and so on. Think about a hospital without medicine or fake medicine or expired medicine, so that, you know, Kenyans are paying lots of money, always raising, in fact, fundraising, you know, for medical services. And yet sometimes we're not even getting the services we need. You could go down the, you know, the chain, you know, in every other area. Think about, of course, the area of business. The world has become a small village, a global village. You can get you can crook your way in your own country, but you will never be competitive. And very few businesses today can succeed if they don't have a global reach with all the technology and so on. So we are hampered, you know, from being able to grow, being able to sell our services beyond our borders, if we don't develop the right competitiveness by, you know, taking shortcuts and so on. So there are lots of reasons, I think, around this that this should be a focus for us as a country. Right. Redeveloping again the value system and bringing back hope that it is possible. And for me, today is a great day. You may be aware, some of you that are today, ELNET, which I happen to be on the board of and have been associated with for a long time, is going to be celebrating 3 additional ethical leaders and 2 additional Kenyan businesses to show Kenyans it is possible to succeed without cutting corners. You can even make your own clean billion without breaking NYS. Right. You know, there is hope for this country.
But of course, we have some of them also here.
Right here, on my right and left.
Will tell us more about this particular event today. But let's hear from you, Ambassador. But just as we're laying a groundwork for further discussion as well, what is your assessment about ethical leadership and why does it really matter, especially now in Africa?
Yeah, good morning. That point is very, very relevant to the growth of this nation and any nation for that matter. If you go down to the basics as to what is ethical, basically we are talking about values like truth, honesty, integrity. The opposite is also correct, that if you are talking about leadership without unethical leadership, you are talking about falsehood, deceit, crookedness, all those negative things. So if you look at, if you compare the 2 of them, as you talk about integrity or ethical leadership, you are talking leadership that is inspired with truth and integrity. When you talk about the opposite, which of course happens to be the norm in our nations, you are talking about leadership that is based on falsehood, is based on deceit, is based on untruth, half-truths, and so on and so forth. So it's very, very important that if you have to lead any institution, leave alone the nation, it has to start with an ethical understanding, and the concepts that fall therein are basically values that will carry weight in truth, in honesty, in integrity, and anything else that around it should therefore form a foundation of that corporate or that business. So it's important that leadership is ethical in whatever level, because by that way we shall be telling whoever we are guiding or whoever we are leading that what I pass over to you is the truth and nothing but the truth. Of course, you have heard of many things. These days we are talking about, the other day we had withdrawing some currency, some notes, and you would hear people making some allegations that some of them are still using it, or the other something else is happening around that level of currency, which of course it may not be true, but the air has been poisoned by most of us, because we know that even the possibility of that currency being acceptable in the central bank is a possibility, because everything is based on falsehood. So when you stand on the platform of integrity and ethical leadership, then of course you stand against the current, and this current will sweep you, because you are telling people to do what they are not used to doing. And the entire leadership from top to bottom, particularly, or for example, in some institutions, or even in some governments, are based on falsehood. So that at the end of the day, you realize that you are walking against the current, all the institutions are against you, all the people that you deal with are against you, your customers are also against you, because you are talking a foreign language. So in my view, ethical leadership is very, very important, because we are going to base a foundation for a nation that will live for years to come. Falsehood, of course, at one time or the other, it will never become truth, however much it's repeated. So eventually, it has a lifespan.
Right.
Yeah,
but,
it has.
Okay, let's come, but we will come back to you. Of course, you're a member of a diplomatic corps, and we wanted to know, yes, can ethics also be taught, or is just something that, you actually get it from the environment? There's an environmental and societal, aspect to it that really maybe inculcates ethical behavior inside you. So is it something that can be taught? That is something that we look up to. But let's just also rope in Akinyi to tell us more about ethical leadership, why it is important for Africa. Do you consider yourself as an ethical leader? Good morning.
Thank you very much. I consider myself an ethical leader. And I'm one of the awardees of ELNET Ethical. They actually award businesses or personalities who are ethical. I think it was about 3 years ago when I did this about 4 years when I did this particular exercise. And what amazed me was, it was very clear that there's no way you can have an ethical business if you're not an ethical individual. So it starts by you. So if you're not ethical as an individual, then even your business can't be ethical. And again, it's the harder route to take when you're in a society where corruption is what everybody sings. Personally, I've lost businesses because either you can't give kickbacks, so you have to choose, what do I stand for? Do I either not have money or have more money? So you have to choose. I'd rather not have the money, but do the things right. Because at the end of the day, being ethical, as Ambassador has just said, it stands for a long time. It makes your business even have more longevity. You may not make billions of shillings, but with time, you're able to actually run your business or run your life in a very sober way. You're not looking at your back like, who is following me or whatever. I have to be. Your consciousness is very clear. And I think one of the things that is happening right now in this country is that people have actually lost consciousness. Like, I don't really care what happens. Everybody else is getting it the wrong way, though I should also get it the wrong way. And it's not all lost, as just Tim say that, like today, some of the businesses and individuals are going to be awarded. So I think it's upon individual or Kenyans who are ethical, or people who believe in the values that need to make somebody stable, to keep doing what they need to do, and also encourage our next generation. As parents at home, what do we teach our children? When we're on the traffic, are we cutting corners? Are we hurling abuses at people?
Yes.
Are we throwing trash through the window?
Yes.
So, because sometimes you're amazed, you see this person driving a very huge car, and you expect them to be very disciplined and very, you know, because when you throw that trash out, so you're the same person who's going to complain city council is not cleaning or the government is not clean, but who is throwing that thing out? And who is going to clean it? So if we all start even just by our own environment, keep your trash in your car, don't throw it outside. If you're at home, you're staying with neighbors, you have a trash bin, put it in the trash. I mean, let's respect each other's space. So, but because the vice, the evil things have been made normal, so it generally makes it normal. And it becomes a very tightrope for those who are willing or those who are still striving to be ethical to feel out of place.
Thank you.
And one of the things that I always say, it's rather be out of place than be celebrated by everybody. And to be ethical in such circumstances currently, you have to just to be, you know what, I'm going to stand out, I'm going to stay where I am. No matter what people say, this is what I stand for. And we need to also build that into the next generation. Our children should know this is the right thing to do, this is the wrong thing not to do, you know. So when you build that, then we are going to have stable citizens who are also able to stand and say, no, I can't do this, or yes, this can be done.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Let's go back to Yawa, and maybe we have had some of the, you know, aspects of ethical leaders, you know, honesty, you know, being, you know, integrity. These are some of the aspects. But let's just drill deeper into this. Do ethical leaders have special characteristics aside from this that we've heard of from you panelists this morning? When you talk about conscientiousness, I wanted to focus maybe more deeply on cognitive moral development, meaning how sophisticated one's thinking is about ethical issues as it is right now. Maybe you can actually unpack that for us?
Sure. I think when we talk about ethics, one of the foundational concepts is integrity. And if you look at the word integrity, the root word is integer, which is kind of a mathematical term.
Yes.
And in mathematics, integer simply means a whole number. So I think from the dimension of integrity, when we talk about people who are ethical, we really talk about wholeness. So I like the submission before about ethics starting in the home. That when you have a foundation of doing the right thing all the time, regardless of who's watching, I think that does become the foundation upon which ethics is built. However, I do think that there are things that can be done to inspire or compel ethical behavior. So for example, I serve on the board of directors of a really innovative African university called Ashesi University.
Yes.
And I was first a student at Ashesi, and then later on came to serve in its leadership. And one of the models at Ashesi around ethical leadership is really unpacking this question of what is a good society? So for the 4 years of your undergraduate studies at this university, you are challenged to contemplate the question from different dimensions. What is a good society? And more importantly, what is my role in making a society good? And I think that oftentimes we talk about ethics in a very cerebral way that does not really connect to self. And unethical behavior is out there in the space and not necessarily something that we personalize. And so, for example, one of the innovative things that happened at Ashesi University is we outdoored what we call an honor code. We realized that many people come from various high schools and secondary educational institutions, having had a track record of practicing cheating and other examinations malpractices. And so the honor code simply says that I hereby commit myself to not cheat nor condone those who do.
So this is an African problem. Because also we've been fighting this in this country as well. I'm surprised it's happening in Ghana as well. Huh?
And the beauty of that honor code is everyone has the opportunity to opt in. And I think it's partly building a culture where ethics is so top of mind that to do the opposite would be seen as really foreign to the culture in a place. So I bring that example because I do think that there are deliberate things that leaders can do to create an environment where people are either inspired or compelled to act ethically. And the Ashesi model, having an honor code, has inspired other educational institutions in Ghana and actually around the world to adopt the same. And so now students can take unproctored examinations without having to have a physical person in the room watching them, because they are all fully bought into the notion that it is our responsibility to make this a good society. And so that microcosm of a university campus becomes the basis upon which our graduates go into the world of work and into their corporate careers with that same notion that I need to contribute to building a good society, and it is my job and my role to help it be such. So I think ethics, really, the foundation is integrity, and integrity is wholeness, and wholeness can be inspired or compelled through the right type of leadership, which sets the right type of culture that enables ethical behavior to thrive. And I think the more people see unethical behavior go unchecked, the more it desensitizes, demoralizes, and perhaps also inspires unethical behavior. So it goes both ways. And I've seen, different examples of that. And I think that that's why, my work, at least professionally now, is really devoted to looking at what are the things that we can do to help inspire a new generation of ethical leaders. I think that there are a few things that I hold as truth. That one, leadership does not happen in a vacuum. We must be deliberate about nurturing a certain type of leadership who's disposed to act ethically.
Thank you. Thank you. We are actually circling back with more. We want to take a short break right now. And when we come back, of course, we'll explore more. Yes, if integers that is a wholeness, then what is the opposite of, integers? It's fractions, as we learned in school, yeah? So a lot of people are fractionated we have people who are not whole in the society because they are not really, pursuing integrity. And what will we do as Africans to make sure that also our leaders, yes, they pursue ethical leadership in various spheres of their lives where they're leading organizations or leading countries as well. So there has to be deliberate effort that is coming also from these leaders to try and inculcate that also down the generations that are coming up.